All right, I think we're going to get started. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our teen panel. I'm Carrie Nagel, and my job today is to basically just pass around the microphone and help you get your questions answered by our teens here, who are going to start by just introducing themselves, letting them know a little bit about them, and then you can just start firing questions at them.
I'm Hannah. I'm from Scotch Plains, New Jersey. I just graduated high school in May, and in about a week and a half, I'll be moving to Israel. And yeah.
I'm Brooke. I'm 16. I'm going to be a senior in high school. I'm from Connecticut. Yeah.
I'm Nico. I'm going to be a senior in college at UC Santa Cruz, and I'm from San Leandro, California.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm going into 7th grade at Swift Creek Middle School, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
All right, does anyone have a question to get started? Okay, then I will start with one. As you've been navigating through school, have you had any specific trick you've used to kind of help in the classroom? I know that's something as a parent I used to worry about. I don't worry about anymore. But is there a little technique or something that you've done in school to kind of help yourself?
Yeah, one of the tricks I've used is in the school I kind of used landmarks to navigate, like major places, like maybe the library or a really interesting, like maybe cafeteria. And I also like to study like the school map before we go, so I can have an idea of where my classes are and not be running around the first day.
I know when I was in high school, I was a little more shy and didn't want to sit in the front of the classroom. So certain teachers would write really big and certain teachers would write really small. It varied. But for especially math and some science classes, I would go to the teacher after school, and I would get more help if I needed or if I didn't really understand something or couldn't see something. So I spent a lot of time after school with teachers, and I think that helped. And just informing teachers that, hey, I have a vision problem, and I also have a light sensitivity. So some days I would go into class with sunglasses, and just letting the teachers know that, hey, I'm wearing sunglasses because I have a migraine and not because I'm too cool for school or anything. So yeah, just informing the teachers was a trick.
The biggest thing that I really use is my iPad. Everyone in my school gets an iPad, so it's not weird for me to have one. Just to use to like take pictures of the board, or even like when teachers are taking notes on the board, I don't even take a picture. I just open up the camera and then kind of like zoom in and then use that as like the board. Or even my phone sometimes. My teachers never really catch me, or they don't really care. My school is pretty okay on that, and my phone's just like smaller, so it's less noticeable, and people just think I'm being lazy and not taking notes rather than having my big huge iPad up.
Over the years, I went to public middle school and then private high school. So in public school, I kind of developed a lot of little tricks for myself because they weren't so, I had to advocate for myself a lot. I'd say some of the big ones for me were like in math class for graphs. I hated the lines and the lines crossing and everything. I really couldn't do that. And even like taking notes on loose leaf paper, I hated the lines, so I'd always do it on printer paper. So I mean, providing that for myself was always my big trick, is bring it yourself and you'll always have it. So yeah.
I would say as far as on the graph paper and on the lines, you can look online and get enlarged graph paper that's also in bold, and you can also do that with lined paper too. So a little bit wider space, and it almost looks like a Sharpie going across. Less likely to be used, I'm guessing, in middle school and high school, but as your kids are little and just kind of starting to learn how to figure out in the writing, that is a little bit helpful there. Okay, we've done 2 of my questions. Somebody must have a question out there. All right, here we go. I'm going to start here.
I have a 2-year-old with Nystagmus. Never met anyone prior to being here with Nystagmus. And I would like to know, growing up, the reason why I'm giving you that information, growing up, when did you learn that you had Nystagmus? And how did you learn? Did your parents tell you? Did you feel that it was different? I'd just like to know that from your point of view.
Personally, so I have congenital nystagmus, so I was born with it. And I don't remember the exact, they were like, you have nystagmus. Like, it was just always, I just grew up knowing that. I think in my family, our differences were always embraced. Everyone had something, so we always were aware of each other, and we always took pride in it. So it's just always at a young age, I had it in the back of my mind, I guess.
Yeah, just kind of the same thing. Like, there wasn't like a sit down and like a big tell. Like, I reveal. Like, I've just always like known, and I don't remember not knowing. It's just always been there.
I remember it was also when I was really young, but my brother, he also has nystagmus, and his nystagmus is more severe than mine. Mine is more mild, but we went to the optometrist, and they were looking at his eyes, and they said, oh, he has nystagmus, and I was there also, and they were like, oh, we can just check him, and they're like, oh, he does too. So I kind of found out at the same time as my brother, but I was pretty young, so I don't really remember like an exact day.
Yeah, so they found out a couple weeks after I was born, but I had to kind of grow up to know what nystagmus was, because at the time it just sounded like anything, maybe even sound like a good thing. So a couple of years ago, I kind of learned what it meant and why your eyes kind of wobble and what it really is. But yeah, I think it's good to tell, but sometimes they may just be looking at you like, what's that?
Thank you for sharing.
I would say on the parent end of it too, by being at things like this and just naturally in the doctor's office, those words, just kind of start to sink in. It does just become part of something that you've always known. Our 9-year-old that does not have nystagmus asked us at the conference if she had it, and we just didn't tell her, and it was here. So I said, you would have known by now, but it was just funny that she just was assuming that maybe she did.
Another comment as a parent, I'm Hannah's mom, and we always made sure that when we talked about it, she heard us talk about it, so she had language to talk about it. So someone would say, what's going on? Or when we went to a doctor's appointment, I thought it was important to tell the doctor when we got there, like, don't be worried, she has nystagmus. But I would always kind of partner with, she has nystagmus, her eyes wobble, and sometimes she has trouble seeing things far away. And she kind of picked up that language, I think, because we just always said it in front of her.
Hi. I'm wondering how the workload is when you're in high school or even college as far as reading, keeping up with all the reading. Do you use audio books, or how do you get through everything? It seems like it's a lot even for me going through it without nystagmus.
Yeah, definitely high school, I would say, was more difficult for me than college, actually, surprisingly, because in high school you have like mandatory books. Like I was talking to another family about how I used audiobooks, and I found out about like audiobooks like my junior to senior year of high school, and that really helped because when I was reading, I would always be so stressed because I'm not really an English major. Like, I don't really like English class or reading, so just reading would stress me out, and then I couldn't read because I couldn't focus. So I would put an audiobook on, but then I would also have the book in front of me, and I would like follow along, and that really helped, like just with not just classes, but also like understanding the book. So I really recommend audiobooks if they're having trouble reading. College, the college I go to is on the quarter system, so I take like 2 to 3 classes a quarter, and we have a lot of free time, so there's a lot of time to do homework and to like go to office hours, and there's just a lot of more resources. So if your child takes advantage of the resources, I think college will be a little more easier for that reason. But I guess it also depends on the major. I'm more of like a science major, so I don't really have to read like 18-page essays before a class. So I guess it would kind of vary on the major.
So I actually love English. I might go into it in college. I took AP English this year and going to take AP English next year also. And so far, I haven't had too much trouble. Of course, reading, my eyes get tired. And of course, when you're staying up until 3 in the morning reading, it gets even worse. The biggest thing really is just essays, which it's pretty easy because you just increase the font on the computer, which I always forget, so my mom has to remind me, which is great. But no, so far the workload has been okay.
In public school and middle school, it was definitely a lot more difficult because they weren't so outgoing. They didn't, I guess, okay, maybe it's not that they didn't care, they just didn't know how to handle my situation, I guess. So I found it very difficult, and for me, listening to audiobooks, I can't focus on that. So in middle school, I a lot of times used an iPad to zoom in. I think it was really a big struggle for me. It was really a big struggle for me, and most of it I guess I just pushed through it and did what I can. I don't think it mattered so much because I was a lot younger, but then in high school, I definitely asked for a lot more help. I got bigger font books. Sometimes my teachers would be able to get it for me on a PDF, that was very helpful because I could zoom in online and stuff. And yeah.
We sometimes at home too have an old school Kindle, so it doesn't have the glare on it, but then you can kind of pump the font up to, whatever size you want, and more for probably pleasure reading. I'm not sure that you would get textbooks on there.
My question, what advice can you give a kid who's maybe not very eager to advocate for herself, who feels shy, who does not want to draw attention to herself, has been given an iPad but doesn't want to use it because she feels different, and various other things that other accommodations, but maybe the whole thing about feeling different is a little troublesome or worrisome. Do you have any advice?
So that was me. I guess that now that I'm older, it's easier to say, to advocate for yourself, but I get that. Like, it was so hard for me because at my school, no one got iPads. And I was just carrying it around, taking pictures of the boards, and everyone was like... And what was even harder was when a teacher would say in front of the whole class, "Hannah, do you need that enlarged?" Like, thank you for, like... So that was hard, especially when I was exposed, I guess, like, to the whole class. That was hard, and now it's easier for me to say, embrace your differences. It's okay to be different, but I guess to have someone to talk to, be able to create a relationship with the teacher or even a friend. It was nice to be able to talk to my best friend that was always in my classes and say, "Look, I think I might ask the teacher for an enlargement," or something like that, where not everyone has to know, but the one or two people that you really trust, that always helped me at least.
Yeah, that was actually exactly me. In middle school, I got an iPad, and I did not use it at all until high school when we all had iPads. I'm not really sure advice-wise. I do know it gets easier when you're older, not because you feel less different, but just because you realize it's either get an education or sit there. So I've definitely realized now, like taking the SAT, I don't love having enlarged tests, but also if I get a better score on the SAT because the font is a little bigger, I'm gonna take going to college rather than looking like everyone else and not filling out the test. So I think it's hard when you're little to really understand that, but as time goes on, they'll pick it up more.
Yeah, the only advice that I think that would have helped me when I was younger was just make sure you have a really good support group of like friends and family and even teachers that know your position and like know the troubles you go through and that you can talk to. But yeah, it was definitely hard, especially like when I would walk through like high school with like sunglasses and people were like, "Why are you wearing sunglasses?" And I'm just like, "Oh, 'cause I have a headache," or you know. So it was definitely harder, but it was easier when I would go to my friends group and then they understood. So I think just making sure that your kids or people you know have a really good support group and that they're not afraid to talk to you or talk to the teachers.
Yeah, so like all they were saying, having a good support group. And one thing that helped me and my sister with Nystagmus was we found pen pals through the American Nystagmus Association, and we talked to them and wrote about how kind of we had to deal with Nystagmus, and they wrote, and it kind of gave like someone to talk to about challenges you've had if no one else understands. And I think it is kind of a growing into thing that at some point, if maybe all your classmates start to get more technology or iPads, it can be better. But there are lots of devices like you can stick on a computer like magnifiers that show the board, and there's lots of little attachments you can add to like Chromebooks if you have in your school. But also just having like someone to talk to is really important for them to talk about all their challenges.
Right, so I'm curious about how you dealt with lockers. If you use them, was it actually doable? I mean, my son's just getting ready to hit that stage, and we've had him practice at home, but it's very different when you can hold it up to your face as opposed to when it's actually on the locker. Were you able to line it up, or did you need to have some special one, like where you just punch in a code or something?
Yeah, for lockers, it depends on the person. For me, I was able to practice enough, and then at school it came. But for some kids who it's just really hard to see, they got like bigger locks or keys, and it's really helped them stay on time to class. And they don't really get embarrassed. They just use it, and no one really notices after a while. So it can really help them. But if they can't do it at home, I think they should definitely try it on the back-to-school night or during a summer camp at your school. And if they like it, they can stick. But there's always another option the school should offer.
Yeah, I didn't use my locker until like my junior year of high school just because I wasn't confident in it, and I was like, I'll just carry my books. But then when you get like 5 textbooks, you're like, I need to figure out this locker thing. I don't think the hardest thing about the lockers was doing the lock, because over time, like when you do it the first time, you're not going to get it, and then when you do it a bunch, you'll get it. I think the harder thing was finding my locker, because all the lockers were painted the same color, and then the numbers were like way at the top, so like I would have trouble finding my locker. But then again, over time, you're like, okay, my locker's the third one to the left of this like pillar or something. So yeah, I would just say lockers definitely come with time, but yeah, you kind of need to use lockers, yeah.
My high school doesn't have lockers, so I don't really know.
Personally, I was able to see the dial and all the tick marks. If I hold something close enough, I can, but I would suggest something where you touch something because the least straining, try to provide the least straining possible. Because especially if he's in school, I know for me, even like trying to see someone far away, like across the hallway, and then go into English class, like that was awful. Like, so if it's easier, by all means. Yeah.
I think everybody struggles with lockers, whether they can see or
For
not.
sure.
And if they would allow you to, you could at least get started with like a Sharpie, make the numbers a different color on the lock, just to make it easier for turning.
One thing we did is we went to Five and Below and bought the dial locker for Alex, so that the summer before he could practice and play and decide, should I do this or should I go with the key routes? I think those were the 2 options. When he says practice before you do it, that was a challenge.
We also requested an end locker for my daughter, and at Target we found a lock that it wasn't one of the spin dial ones. It was it was like up, like you took your thumb and it was like up twice, down twice, left, right, and it was so easy for her.
I had that on my gym locker. That was definitely
that was
a move. Yeah.
No, I saw hands over here.
I am just wondering if you feel that you get asked at your ages now by people, what's happening with your eyes, and if you have an answer that you tend to give people that's maybe different from when you were younger, or how do you respond now when if people are saying things to you?
I think my answer is different pretty much every time, I guess, somewhat, because first of all, it depends who's asking. Usually if it's a peer, I say, I have nystagmus, something along those lines, and my eyes wiggle, I was born this way. It causes my vision to be bad. Because most of the time, people will say, hey, look at that. And I'm like, look at what? and they're like, oh, why can't you see that? And that's when I have to explain myself. So I'm pretty open about it. I don't know.
So I actually don't really get asked this that much. I don't think either everyone already knows, which I kind of doubt. This semester I had chemistry, and the girl sitting next to me, she was my partner for like 4 months, maybe a little less. And one day she turns to me, she's like, wait, your eyes move. And I'm like, you really haven't noticed yet? Like, we've been talking to each other forever. And then even when they do, I'm not really good about it. I'm not gonna lie. I usually just go, oh, I don't know. They just wiggle, I guess. And I just act. Really. Like, I don't know what it is. I just say they wiggle, then move on in the conversation. Probably leaves them with more questions, but I just don't want to answer them. So I don't really feel like I really have to. I mean, of course, like, if they kept on asking questions, then I would answer, but they don't really. Like, usually that's a pretty good answer for people.
Yeah, when I was younger, like in middle school and even early high school, I would kind of make a joke. I would be like, "Oh, my eyes are just cool like that, like they just move." But yeah, then kind of now I have to explain it, and I think that goes with a lot of like younger, like elementary, even some middle school. Like if you try to explain it, they'll just like fall asleep and then they'll forget. So like I just kind of brushed it off, but now I can explain it and people will kind of get it. So yeah.
Yeah, like they were saying, I like to keep it kind of short and sweet because most likely they'll come back the next day asking the same question, like completely forgetting. But then teachers, I go a little more complex because it can help them understand like my needs. Like if I'd say my eyes wiggle and it's harder to see the board, they may understand and give me a better seat and be a little easier when I ask for maybe a paper enlarged. But yeah, generally for friends, I just say I was diagnosed with nystagmus, which just, it makes my eyes move and wobble.
All right. Nope, that's great.
Do any of you have jobs, and if you do, how does it affect your job? If it does.
Unemployed.
The most recent job I had was I worked in a research lab over the summer, and it was definitely interesting because, like, you have to like fill the pipettes and turn it to like a specific number, and initially that was kind of hard. I was unsure if what I was doing was right, but again, over time, I think a lot of the answers are like over time it gets easier. But yeah, over time, like you start to get a feel for it, and you just become more confident. And I also think that's another big important key is that like when you initially start something, you're really nervous, and that's gonna like affect your vision. You're gonna be nervous and like scared, so you're gonna see worse. But when you do it a couple more times, you're like more confident, and I think that shows in my vision.
I don't have like a big grown-up job, obviously, but I scoop ice cream. So it's not really that hard. The biggest thing really that I found was I had to like memorize the menu, just because, usually if you were working, you could just like look over and see like the prices and things, but it was just harder because I would have to talk to a customer and then put my head like super close to the wall, probably make it really awkward. So I just memorized the menu, which wasn't that bad. And then also, like when they order, you write their order down on a little pad, and then usually you like come behind the person taking the order to go scoop the ice cream. But when people write it down, if it's not big enough, then I can't see it. So just kind of listening to the person giving the order, even if I'm far away, and just picking up like tricks. Like obviously it's different for each job, but you'll pick up and learn how to adapt for like tiny teenage jobs like that.
Just to add on what Brooke said, a lot for parents with small kids with nystagmus, a lot of living life with nystagmus is just adaptation. Like, there are some things that I don't know how I do it. I just like learned. Like, for example, I played soccer my whole life, and I was a starter on the varsity team at high school, and like my mom just found out that the way I saw my teammates was because I memorized the color of everyone's cleats. Like, I just like little things that like I don't even think about adapting to. Like, it just happens. Personally, I don't have a job. I mentioned I was moving to Israel. I'm joining the Israeli army in November. So I'm going to have challenges, and I know that. Thank you. Thank you. But I just found out there's a Nystagmus center in the Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. So I have some resources there.
Any question?
So, I know that your eyes, like, they're not good, obviously. So I've heard that, like, if you have one sense bad, that some of your other senses are better. And, I want to know how you use those senses to your advantage.
I don't think I do. Maybe subconsciously, but it's not like I'm like a super good hearer or anything, so.
Yeah, same. Like if someone's talking to me, like I still can't hear them. Like I don't know. Like, yeah.
No, yeah, like the same. I don't notice my senses like enhanced, but maybe they are. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it depends how hard I'm trying to listen to the person or really engage. But actually, the only way to really enhance is use my eyes more. Yeah, I don't know.
I disagree with Brooke. I feel like she hears every conversation in our house, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing. Like, we can be having a conversation and she comes running down the stairs with her input. So I'm going to call no on that one. You had your hand up.
I'm just curious how many of them have had surgery, excluding Alex.
Okay. So, surgeries?
I have not had surgery.
I had surgery when I was 4.
Like
Six.
but
I don't remember any of it. I just remember getting an American Girl doll.
You
so.
did get an American Girl doll. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
When I was 1 or 2, I had null point surgery with a student of Dr. Hurdle's who was in New Jersey, so that was convenient.
In just one surgery?
Yeah, I just had 1 null point surgery.
Okay.
That's it.
Thought I saw a hand over here.
So my question is about making eye contact. In our culture, it's very important to make eye contact, especially in situations like a job interview, a date. And I don't know how difficult or easy it is to make eye contact, but I'm wondering if you've ever experienced any social awkwardness around that and how you deal with it.
I'm glad that was mentioned because I actually noticed yesterday when I was talking to someone and I said to my mom, I was like, she can't make eye contact either. And like, and honestly, I can attempt to make eye contact. My problem is that I'm a little embarrassed because sometimes I'll be looking at someone and they'll be like, who are you talking to? Like they'll look, and that's embarrassing for me. So like I kind of make myself like look around the room and then look at them and look at, but I haven't, no one's commented on my eye contact. They more comment on who I'm talking to behind them. So yeah, but it was nice to see people not being able to make eye contact either, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I've never had anyone comment on it. This visit, we've been looking at colleges, and I actually just had an interview with a college the other day. And during it, I was, attempting to make eye contact, and then he was just like moving, because it was an interview, and I was like super nervous, and the whole world was just spinning. So yeah, I guess, I don't know. Like, I just attempt to do it, and I feel like if you attempt, it at least looks like, I don't know, you're trying to make eye contact, like you're not being rude, I guess. And with friends and stuff, like, I don't know, I feel like no one my age actually makes eye contact, so that's fine.
Yeah, I guess the only so whenever like at different job interviews or even like talking to friends, whenever I make eye contact, I feel like that's when people ask me like, why do your eyes move? So that's like when they notice the most. If you are like nervous or can't make eye contact, what I've done is just like look at someone's cheek or like look at their forehead where like it looks like you're making eye contact, but you're not. So there are different tricks that you can use, but yeah, I personally don't have a problem with like making eye contact.
Yeah, so for me, it depends on the situation because when you're more stressed or tensed with nystagmus, your eyes can move faster. Or if you're like drained of sleep, your eyes can move faster and it's harder. So maybe if you're talking to someone and you're trying to have a conversation, it's like you're looking at everything except them, no matter how important it is. It's like, oh, there's a trash can next to him, just looking everywhere. And then I've had the one problem where my eyes, sometimes it looked like I rolled my eyes when I was talking to someone. Yeah, so they were pretty understanding since it was my mom who I accidentally rolled my eyes at. Yeah, but besides that, it's pretty good.
I think also, teaching to a really good handshake helps compensate for the eye contact. Is there a question? Sorry, pass on.
Are you willing to share your current corrected vision, what you're at right now?
Yeah, I think with glasses, I'm at 20/45 or 20/50. My eyes can be, 50/60. Depends on the eye. Like one eye can be stronger on certain days, or the other eye can maybe be 20/50, 20/60. But it depends on how tired I am. They can get better or worse.
Yeah, for me, it's like on a bad day, it can get like 20/60, 20/80 maybe, but for a good day, it's like almost non-existent. So.
Yeah, I think like 20/50-ish. Like it really depends. We went to California last summer and I tested and I got 20/70 and it was after like a long plane ride and I was exhausted and it was a new place. And that was the last test before my license or before I turned 16 to get my license. And I was like, no way. I need to drive at night. Like I'm taking this again. So then I went back home and I tested like 20/40-ish so I could get a license. So it really just depends.
20/50, 20/60 as well.
We've kind of learned too that when you're in for the eye exam or when they're in for the eye exam to encourage them and the person who's doing the test with them to take their time to answer. Brooke had somebody different do her eye exam when she did get the vision she needed for her license, and that person was very calm and just, very like, take your time. I know you can do it. It's okay to wait. And she got one of her best visions that day. And I think it was probably because she was encouraged to not be rushed and just feel like she had to get an answer out. So being in that type of environment too, I think is really important.
So just a follow-up question. Your vision, based on what you just said it was now, was it around the same when you were younger or did it improve as you got older?
I was born with no vision at all. And then as I got older, I mean, even just since like 6th grade, my vision's gotten so much better.
My vision has gotten better over time, I believe. I don't really know, but yeah, it's definitely improved.
I think mine has stayed relatively the same.
Yeah, for me, I've stayed about the same. I've got a little better, and then my sister got a little worse with vision. So it just depends on the person.
One on the recruitment aspect, the interviewing aspect. I do recruitment, and I've had candidates, super senior people that have something going on with their eyes or whatever it is. And it's funny, the most effective thing always is that for them to just, it's almost like quickly mention it before you can even catch it. And it's great because then you're just kind of already prompted for it. And so like I've had people that have one eye that just kind of stray or anything that happens, and it's just super effective. And then with interviewers, they can just focus on what you're saying as opposed to, wait, what's going on? They just get easily, people are easily distracted, and that's just one of them. So that's just my experience. But then the other thing I was going to ask as a question is your null point. Have you noticed any changes over the years? I have a 2-year-old with nystagmus, and it's interesting because he started out kind of full head on, and then it seems like he tilted more, and I just don't know kind of what your experience was with that and the null point.
Yeah, so I haven't seen a lot of changes or many differences over the years. I think they've stayed pretty much the same.
Yeah, mine relatively the same.
When I was, oh my God, sorry. When I was little, it was really bad. I don't remember a lot of it, but apparently it was like that. Just like walking around. Yeah, so it's definitely improved. I don't like sit and watch TV with my head tilted, but like if I'm really focusing, I might just like try to like move my head around. But I feel like even that just like depends on the day, like which position works best.
Again, you're right. I had null point surgery when I was 2, so I mean I look at pictures when I was a baby and I'm like that. So it has improved, but still when I'm trying to see something far away, I always find myself tilting my head.
Brooke's surgery also adjusted her head tilt, so she did have the null point at a kind of an odd angle, and that's what the surgery mostly corrected. And for the most part, it's been gone. But like she said, every once in a while, I think when she's probably overtired or she's trying to look, you see it just a tiny bit from that way.
I see that 3 of you do not wear glasses. I'm assuming that you're wearing contacts, maybe, or maybe some of you don't wear anything at all. But for any of you that do wear contacts, I'm looking for a little bit of tips or tricks. My 9-year-old son, we tried to do contacts this year and had a heck of a time trying to get him to learn to put them in. So is there any tips or tricks you can help a mom out with?
I was 8-ish when I got contacts.
Just about 8, a young 8.
So our routine was every morning for a solid like 15 minutes maybe, I would lay down on the couch and my mom would stand over me trying to get those things in my eyes. So I don't really know about tips, just it's gonna be hard. But now I'm like super good at them. Like I just plop them in like the easiest thing. So I guess just practicing, that's really it. Sorry.
She was able to get them out, thankfully, because trying to do that would have been pretty horrible. Yeah, she got them out no problem, but getting them in, but she's 100% right. It was literally like over her, telling her to like stay still, relax. While my finger was going towards her eye. So.
Okay. No one else wears contacts.
Okay. More questions? All right. I know a headache was brought up. Do others of you get headaches? Do you think it's from your position when you're trying to read, just exhaustion? And if you do have headaches, any tips on what helps relieve them?
Advil. I get headaches from straining my eyes. Also, sun and light really gets me. I find sunglasses that aren't polarized, and I just like the cheap ones that you can get at Five Below. I still get headaches through those and everything. So I always get good sunglasses, and when I can, dim the lights or turn the lights off. And straining my eyes, kind of, again, I've gotten used to it. But yeah, if it's really bad, I'll take Advil.
I usually get headaches from just like the position where like if I'm looking at my phone or like reading because I have to be so close, it just hurts like my neck and my back. So like a lot of the time if I just like put my head against the pillow, like my headache goes away. So it's literally just my neck. So what I use for that is icy hot. I also go to like a chiropractor. Yeah.
I would definitely get a lot of headaches growing up. Like it almost felt like every day I would get a headache, and that was from light sensitivity. So I would wear sunglasses like going to school. Also hats. How to help it? I would just sit in a dark room and hopefully it would go away. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can get headaches from like reading books for long periods of times and from screen time. My eyes can get watery and it's like kind of eye unfocused. Like it can get blurry if I'm on for a really long time. So it's kind of like it sets a limit for me. So I'm not reading forever or on screen time forever because I get watery or I get a really bad headache. So I try to not stay on electronics too long. So it's like a screen time saver right in my head.
For light sensitivity too, for those of you with younger kids, we had kind of forgotten about like goggles in the pool. You're not really going to wear your sunscreen, but if you do look online, you can find shaded goggles to kind of help with that, especially when they're younger, with better straps too, so they're not falling all over the place. And again, until they're really old enough to be able to tell you that that's what they have is a headache, just maybe to look for symptoms or signs of that might be bothering them, depending on how long your day was and that sort of thing. Time check, does anyone have a watch on for me? 4:15. Okay, a few more questions?
Since we're on the topic of medication, maybe because I'm a pharmacist, I like knowing about medication. I read a lot about medication like Botox and gabapentin, baclofen. If you don't mind sharing any medications that you guys take that may help you or anything like that. I haven't heard anything in any of these talks about medication, so
I've never really taken any medications.
Yeah, just Advil for headaches, but not really anything else.
Yeah, just Advil and Icy Hot, but nothing. That's not medication.
Same.
Okay.
Thanks.
We looked at the eye drops for a little while, but there just hadn't been enough yet to warrant trying it. And she was in such a good place. Like sometimes I think too, when you find that they're in a good spot, you're kind of afraid to mess with anything. Like then you're like, okay, things are going, so let's not add but always still kind of reading about it to try to see what might be the next thing to kind of help.
Gym class, ball sports, any any advice?
Yeah. I was the sporty girl, still am. And I played all of it. I'm gonna say right now, softball was not my thing. Like, I would start and then I quit after a while because it was just too hard to see. Like, again, I've played soccer my whole life. That was always easy, relatively easy for me because I guess the ball was so big. And again, I've adapted to how I see my teammates and the other team and everything. I heard someone at the other panel talking about golf. That, like I've been to Topgolf and stuff, and like, even like putt-putt, like you see the ball right there and then it's gone and you just don't know where it went. Like, and that's normal for nystagmus. And yeah, I guess the bigger ball, the easier it is to see. Again, it's all adaptation. I was also the manager of basketball and soccer for a couple years. I memorized who has knee braces, who has these shoes, who has those shoes, things that I can see color because that's from distance, that's the only thing I can see, so yeah.
Yeah, just like adapting. I played soccer for most of my life and just figuring out tips, just like how to figure out where the ball is, which you can usually tell because that's where people are running to. I've always liked gym class. I did play tennis sophomore year. Wasn't the best. Did not play again, but I really enjoyed it. I guess like advice-wise, I would just say to like laugh it off. Like, yeah, I'm bad at tennis, but I play with my friends anyways, and they like playing with me because they always win. And just like laughing. Or like whenever they serve the ball and it goes up, I'm like, I don't know where it is, but I guess I'll try to hit it back to you. Like just laughing and being like, oh, I'm just like clumsy and just like am bad at sports rather than being like, I can't play sports because I have nystagmus. Like just doing it anyways and just having fun with it.
Yeah, I think that was key because I played baseball and initially I was so bad. Like I would strike out every time because I couldn't see the ball. And then like one summer I would just like go practice baseball like every day. And then I finally got to a place where I felt I was like average. so then I stopped. But I also played like basketball, and I think you said, Hannah, that the big ball sports, I liked those more because I could see them. So like basketball was definitely fun. And I started getting into golf like recently. I definitely need to bring people with me because when I hit it, and then I'm just like, I don't know where that went. So I hit it, and then other people like tell me where to go. So, but I definitely encourage people to play sports because I feel like a lot of people see nystagmus as like a barrier to what they can do. But I think sports especially is a place where you're supposed to have fun. So even if you're bad, if the kid is still having a lot of fun, then I think it would be worth it in the long run. So they have like that memory of saying, oh, I played this sport.
Yeah, so like you were saying, baseball and golf are kind of like magic tricks. Like you hit the ball and then boom, goes past your head. Oh, there it is. Could have caught that. Yeah, but at our school you can opt out, but it kind of goes with the like social anxiety or something. Like if you opt out, what will people say that you're not there to play baseball? So it's kind of a decision. Do you want to just suck it up, or do you want to opt out and have the chance of, I don't know, getting bullied or having a ton of questions? But yeah, it can be hard to see the ball until it's right in front of you.
You guys are all amazing. I just want to say that. And also, what would you say was some of the best advice you had growing up when, times maybe got the toughest for you?
The best advice I probably had is that I can still do almost whatever I want, even with nystagmus, and that there's lots of ways you can improve it and do things you still like. You don't have to just give it all up and only do very in the safe zone activities. You can kind of stretch to things that might be a little harder, but if you practice enough, it can become easy, and you may really enjoy it after that.
Some advice that I would give is just to be confident. I think a lot of people, I think this goes for my brother and for me a little bit, was confidence was lacking, and I just didn't feel like whenever I would go to a separate room to take a test, for example, I just felt different. And I think now when I do that, I almost feel confident, like, yeah, I have this issue, but I'm working, I'm doing these solutions to solve some problem. And instead, I feel like a lot of young people say, oh, I'm different, I'm weird. And just to get out of that mentality, I think would be good. But again, that's hard. Yeah, so just confidence, and I don't know how you would give someone confidence, but that was key, I think, for me.
Yeah, and just kind of going along with the confidence, like not. So like in the other room, we were told to talk with the kids about how you're special because you have nystagmus, which is true. Like you're special, but also like I'm special for other reasons. Like it's not just because I have it. So I guess not really using it as an excuse to not do things. Like do that thing, see if you can do it, and if you can't, then whatever. But just doing things without even thinking about it and then kind of going from there.
I don't think I had anyone give me specific advice for nystagmus, but I did have a very, very supportive family. And knowing that whatever happened at school or at soccer practice or whatever, that my family would always support and embrace my differences. Because at the end of the day, it's me. I'm not Hannah because I have nystagmus, I'm me. And they always supported me no matter what, and they still do. So that's the best thing you could have.
Okay, I think we have time for a few more questions.
I was just curious because I remember at some point, I was just told with my 2-year-old, like, oh, balance might be more of an issue, and, it might be something just to kind of just be mindful of or what have you. Did you guys experience anything with balance, or do you experience anything with balance?
I definitely don't have good balance, but now that I know that I can blame it on my nystagmus, I don't have good balance. I guess could be. I don't know.
My 2-year-old's also clumsy, but that's like
Yeah.
generically what they are. Yeah.
Like when I was little, I did gymnastics forever. I've done dance, I don't know, 8 years. I don't know. Like I've done gymnastics and dance and totally fine. Again, I'm just really clumsy, and I really don't think it has anything to do with nystagmus. It's just who I am. Like I walk sideways when nothing to do with my eyes. Like I'm just clumsy. So.
Yeah, I think my balance is fine.
Yeah, like I don't have trouble. I'm not as severe where it's like shaking, kind of like we saw last night, where everything's kind of shaking. But I'm also never going to be on the tightrope at the circus walking up there with a line.
Any other questions? Okay. Kind of touched on it, but at the end of the day, in your opinion, are parents worrying too much about their kids with nystagmus, especially maybe the new parent or, the under 8 that haven't quite been to all the doctors and kind of seen all the success? Would you say in general, parents are over worrying or they have a lot to worry about?
I think it's just the first shock of hearing they have nystagmus because kind of when I was born, I don't think these conferences were as big as they were, so they weren't just like, it's kind of like almost seemed a little more unheard of, so they didn't have as many sources to go to. But over time, they've let me do what I want, but if there's something, they kind of let me decide my limits, which I really like because it lets me experience new things. But there are a couple of things I try to stay away from, like baseball. Yeah, but I don't think they're too overprotective, but it just depends on the parents.
Yeah, I mean, over worrying, under worrying. I mean, I would lean more toward over worrying, just because, I don't define myself like with nystagmus. I think I do a lot of things that most people would say I can't do, and my parents were really great because they let me play sports and they let me do things that I like to do, and I couldn't imagine like someone saying, "Oh, you can't play a sport or something." If they really want to do that, I would say just listen to the kids and then be there for them. Like there were plenty of times where I got hit with a baseball because I didn't see it, but like that my parents didn't rush and say, "Okay, no more baseball." Like they were just there to support me. So I would just say the support is there, like support how your kids feel, but then also be aware that mistakes might happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I know parents are going to worry, but you can try to worry a little less. Like, it will be fine. Also, going along with the sports thing, like, if I was ever told that I couldn't play soccer, that would just make me want to play soccer a billion times more. So, depending on the kid, wouldn't really recommend. But yeah, I would just let them do what they feel comfortable doing, and then go from there.
I mean, your parents, you worry a lot, so it makes sense. My mom learned Braille when I was little, so there's that type of over worrying. But yeah, I mean, kind of letting. I don't think if I had the option of doing something that I didn't think I could do because of nystagmus, which I don't think would happen, but if it did happen and my safety was at risk, I probably wouldn't do it because I know that I know it's there and I know that it can cause trouble, but for the most part, I'll do anything, and if I fail, I fail and I get back up.
We've heard a lot of really good strategies here. And so as a parent, I've got a ton of things that I feel like I could take back to my daughter. But at the same time, I realize that just the same way when my mom tells me things all the time, I don't want to listen to what she says. I want to figure it out on my own. So, the strategies that have been most effective for you all, have they been things that, ideas, suggestions by parents or teachers, or really just kind of things that you've learned on your own, or maybe a combination of both?
I think it's totally on your own. I think everyone's nystagmus is so different. Even just meeting people here, like everyone's eyes are different. And even if we all have nystagmus, even if we have nystagmus because we have ocular albinism, even if we have the same, we're all of our nystagmus, it's all different. So I'm gonna have different strategies than Brooke and Alex and Nico, and I think a lot of it is trying until you find what's right. And again, I don't remember the second when I was like, oh, I can see that now. You know, like where I don't remember the moments where I realized a strategy works for me, because it all had to do with adaptation and time. So, I mean, it's nice to hear things from other people, but in the long run, it's really just what works for you. There's some disorders or things that people have that, yeah, strategies would be nice to hear, but for this, it's really, all you need to know is that you're going to figure it out. You're going to find your way and get to know your brain and what helps you. Sorry, one more thing. I was actually talking about it with a couple of girls, like, what helps me is not going to help her, and what helps her is probably not going to help me, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sure my mom has suggested a billion different strategies to me, and I'm sure I use some of them just like not knowingly, but I definitely like figuring it out by myself, because that just makes me feel more independent also. Even like if I'm typing an essay on the computer and my mom comes over and is like, you can enlarge that. I'm like, I don't need to enlarge that. I can see that. But if I'm just sitting there late at night, then I'll enlarge it myself. So I definitely think sometimes it's better just to like step back, and if they need it, then they'll adjust it, just, you know, being adaptive. But if my mom kind of interferes sometimes, I'm like, no, I can do that. It's fine. So.
Yeah, I think just like providing like the resources, but not like pushing the resources would be really important. Like, you know, maybe giving them a phone with a camera so they can take a picture and enlarge stuff, but don't every time you go to the restaurant, they'll be like, oh, take a picture and enlarge it. Because I think what they were saying about adaptation, that's really key, because when you're going through like school and like life, you're gonna run into a problem, but then you're gonna solve the problem. And I think that problem solving is really good. And then it's gonna what's gonna work for me is not gonna work for everyone else. So just like the self problem solving is good. But as parents, I think providing resources isn't a bad thing. Just not like forcing it onto a kid, but just providing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So like when I was a kid, it was like they'd be like, we can help you, and I'm like, nah, I'll go do it. So I know they can help me, and I'm like, oh, I'll go do it, and then I might come back 5 minutes later and ask for their help. So like maybe just like they all said, providing it, but letting them kind of come to you on their own if they need help. Because sometimes they can get up and do it, because if you always help them in life, sometimes when they won't have someone, it may be hard to just go to a restaurant and not have someone there showing you how to order off the menu. But definitely like provide it for them, let them know they have it if they need it.
I think too, providing a safe space at home to come home sometimes and say, I had a really crappy day, and today Nystagmus is just not a good day. And to be open to that, it's not always going to be, you know, a great day with it, and being a place where it's okay for them to be frustrated, and then you remind them about everything else that's going great and move on. But just having a spot where it's, you know, it's just okay to say, like, today everything that could have went wrong, and I'm going to blame it on Nystagmus today, and just being okay with that kind of thing. All right, I think that we are out of time. Thank you all very much.